questions from the floor. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you for having me. And I'm happy to present at Severe Star Diabetes this evening, the afternoon, your end. Here to talk for 15 minutes, although diabetes and nutrition tends to be a broad topic, but I try to compress and provide highlights in what I'm going to share with you today. My disclaimer, of course, what I'm going to share today does not replace the recommendations of the practitioners for the patients that are joining us, and also for the carers. Okay, I was trying to get it started. This slide is a busy one for the non-practitioners. It may seem complex, but it's just tells us the usual that I assume everyone knows about diabetes as a disorder in blood sugar regulation. And blood sugar being the key issue here, because we know that food is the primary source of blood glucose. And what usually happens when we eat, the body breaks down the food into nutritional components. Some of these components are carbohydrates that are broken down into glucose. When the glucose enters, leaves the digestive side and goes to the blood stream, it becomes blood glucose. And that's what is usually measured when we take a finger prick. And under normal individuals, this is easily regulated when you have insulin working and the pancreas producing insulin very well. Without insulin, or if insulin is unable to work properly, this glucose stays elevated within blood. The reason why nutrition is important and central in diabetes care is because it's it relates to food. Which food results in the blood sugar that the diabetes treatment is trying to control. And that is why this presentation today is important, mainly to understand how in diabetes, what needs to be done in terms of nutrition, the choices that we need to make, how we need to make them, and other considerations that are related to nutrition. I'll briefly take you back to the goals of nutrition, because we know treating diabetes goes beyond treating a disease, but an individual. And the goals of nutrition cover every aspect of an individual's life. And 4 goals, main goals here, is to achieve as normal as nearly possible the blood glucose levels of a person with diabetes, their lipid profile, and maintain normal blood pressure. When there is a risk of complications, or when managing complication, we try to also slow down the rate at which these complications are occurring. The other is addressing the nutritional needs of an individual, basing on the individual's personal preferences, all the circumstances surrounding the person, the patient being considered. But also, the goal of nutrition also looks into maintaining pleasure of eating, so that we don't have restrictions around food, but play around with individual preference, so that we have diets that are not restrictive. A person with diabetes should not look at food as an enemy or the other way around, but also enjoys living like any other person. And how do we get to achieving these goals? Because we know diabetes and blood glucose, which we have said comes from the carbohydrate that we take through the food that we eat, the diet needs to align the carbohydrate intake with diabetes treatment, because that's what the treatment aims to achieve, a balance of blood glucose. Blood glucose comes from food. We need to align the intake of the food, especially the carbohydrate-containing food, with the medication. The diet should also be adequate to foster growth, development, and promote a healthy weight. If we are looking among children that we need to see grow, we need to ensure that the diet is rich and adequate, meeting the requirements for them. For the adults who have maintained most of their stages of growth and development, we are looking at maintaining weight and general well-being. But also it needs to be accompanied with the healthy lifestyle and physical activity recommendations, and also be tailored to individual circumstances, culture, but also satisfy individual preferences, because we are looking at long-term care, because we are dealing with a chronic disease. For children, we want to see them up to adults, and we want them to achieve all their milestones of growth and development. But because we know that the treatment centers around blood glucose, and blood glucose that we see comes from food, nutrition in diabetes, like I indicated, I will try to give highlights, mainly centers, the key areas is carbohydrates, because of the relationship between carbohydrate and blood sugar. But carbohydrates is a concept, or is a nutrient that has different kind of forms, if I may call them. We have carbohydrates as starch, carbohydrate as sugars, and carbohydrate as fiber. And all these different forms have specific benefits that are nutritional and important for a person with diabetes. For starches, those we know, the foods, especially those from ground provisions, you have plantain, you have cereals. Those are good energy sources. They are packed with carbohydrates. The caution is to control portions, because the bigger you consume starches, because they are rich in carbohydrates, the higher a rise you will attain with your blood glucose. Sugars. These we see sugars in fruit sugar. We have the regular sugar through drinks, juices, and all that. And these ones we know that they are culprits for blood sugar excursions, where you have spikes and dips in blood sugar. Whereas they're important in emergencies like hypoglycemia to correct, we need to ensure their occasional consumption and also have them as part of a mixed meal. Fiber, the one that is good and magical for gut health. Satiety, where you have limitation, where you want to control how much intake you want. Weight management and controlling blood sugar excursion. We always encourage adequate of these within the diet. So this understanding of carbohydrates takes us to what we need to focus on if we are trying to match the carbohydrate intake to medication, all predicting the impact on blood sugar. That takes us to what we these days call carbohydrate counting. The concept basically means you establish the amount of carbohydrate that is in a meal that you're going to take, be it breakfast, lunch, dinner, call it, even for snacks. How do you establish for a meal? Because a meal is composed of individual foods. Every food that has carbohydrates is counted, how much it is in the quantity that you are willing to serve or you have served. Recently, we have a lot of software apps that help in carbohydrate counting. And the reason we want to count carbohydrate counting, because we want to achieve precision in matching the amount of, matching our food intake to the treatment. If it's insulin, we are looking at arriving at the insulin carb ratio, which will determine our bolus dose, which is the dose of insulin for meals. And the reason carbohydrate counting is being promoted is because of the flexibility it offers that was never, unlike before, where we had to dictate consistency in the amounts of foods that patients could eat. And also for those who are basically out to set carb consistency goals, it helps you to know and also control for each meal how much the established or the determined goals that you have set for your carbohydrate counting. This carbohydrate counting is something that you can explore with your dietitian. It's not something that I will go into details on how to count through it, but there are materials out there that you can reach out and see. But we have seen carbohydrate counting and why it has become so popular and important in today's diabetes care and management because of the emerging diabetes management technologies and modalities that have demanded for precision of care. Diabetes complications and diabetes control have had serious debates over time, and tightening control among people with diabetes to closely match the normal individuals has been one of the challenges and the tasks the health industry has taken. We have newer insulin analogs. Back then it was human insulins. We have where you have multiple daily injections, the ones I call MDI, which give you flexibility where you inject each time you eat. It gives you flexibility on when you would wish to have a snack, when you would wish to have a meal, and so. But also we have newer delivery modes of insulin, the automated insulin delivery devices. We no longer, many of them are coming in tubeless. And all you need is to punch in your insulin to carb ratio, and then it will have an infusion that is aligned to your targets or to your intake, carb intake. And that's all you need. But for them to be as efficient and precise to deliver that, you need to be also precise with carb counting, with the nutritional aspect, because that's information they need. We have precision blood sugar monitoring technologies that are happening now. Back then, we would rely on self-monitoring of blood glucose, and you'd have many values in books for patients, for healthcare workers to review. A1C came, and now we are looking at time in range. We are looking at glycemic variability. We are looking at tightening a blood sugar control. So each of these is really demanding that we have precision in whatever we do in terms of nutrition. And since we are also having emerging handy carb counting tools, it's something that it's easier done now, where you would have a phone and with an app that is able to carb count. You take a snapshot of the food you are eating, and it helps you reach a closer estimate of your carbohydrates counts, and also exchanges for you to determine your insulin levels. So with these technologies, we see an opportunity and a need to try and tighten the accuracy of nutritional therapy through carbohydrate counting. In my practice, this is a sample that I use for interaction with my patients. It's an online sync, and it's patient customized. Like I said, among the goals, we need to look at the patient circumstances while determining what we need to design. You have food lists, and you develop the food lists with the patients, score their preferences, look at the carb targets. Since it syncs with the patients, there is ease with teleconsultation. The diet reports from the patients are easier to be discussed. It's easier to discuss them with the CG alongside CGM reports. So this has allowed flexibility because they scroll through which foods they want to eat. They click around, and then it computes. And once their target is reached, it flags them that their target is reached. Then they can choose from other food options. But we know that there is a duty and versus the burden, as I conclude. What the role of the dietitian is and what the expectations of a diabetes patient is. Be carb and health conscious, monitor blood glucose, have knowledge of carb counts, know arithmetics because you need to add up, divide, and be on top of survival instincts. So it becomes a burden if the assistance from the dietitian is not adequate. And that's why I always encourage patients to push for dietitians to design and help them manage the expectations. The roles of the dietitians are clear, but they can expand if there is need to help the patient lessen the burden that they have to do. My take home for me, for the people around is nutrition in diabetes goes beyond focusing on diabetes alone. Even when diabetes for treatment tends to call you to be very cautious about its intake and tracking, because we need to fulfill the requirements for growth, development, and health weight. And this is for the attention of the healthcare practitioners we have on the patients, as well as the patients and caregivers. Number two would be the nutritional plans and recommendations should be tailored to the circumstances of individuals, looking at the technologies that are available to these individuals, looking at their level of literacy, looking at their culture. Leicester is a diverse community with, so you'll have a different cultural groups. But then the last one is the patient or carer should explicitly communicate their circumstances. And whenever these circumstances evolve, they need to update their communication, the health worker. It's important, some patients, because of issues of social desirability, do not openly communicate their circumstances, what they have, socioeconomic status, what they cannot afford. And that vacuum affects the decisions and the success of the plans and program from the diabetes care team. Thank you very much. That's what I had for you this
Thank you
time
very
around.
much, Dr. Seguya. That was very interesting. I will open to the floor now. Has anyone got any questions? If they could raise their hand. I cannot see one at the moment. I've got one question that was sent to me. What are the biggest nutritional mistakes people with diabetes make?
I answer, or I go on to answer?
Yes, if you could answer that question, please. Okay. Yes.
Oh, I will speak to my area of work is the biggest mistake. One is the community that we serve has preconceptions and misconceptions, I would call them, which tend to influence their decisions. And those, whenever they take up those choices, they do not communicate that to the diabetes care team. I think the biggest that's the biggest mistake. I would say that being open to communicate any attempts or whatever they are trying to do around their care would be important.
Thank you very much. I think Hina Trivedi wanted to ask a question. Hina? Hina Trivedi.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Wenceslas. That was really nice. A couple of things. Really, really nice presentation. I think food is really important. It's one of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. The others being exercise, sleep, mental health, avoidance of bad behavior, and socialization. All of these things very important in anyone who wants to use their lifestyle to change their outcome, whether it's diabetes, blood pressure, and so on. It made me chuckle. A couple of things. My father's from Uganda. He was born there. So when I saw Matoki and Mogo, and so I was really smiling. I took a screen print, so I'm going to show him the diet plan, which is lovely. But I also want to say, I hope everybody paid attention to your food plate. You had there 0 grams carbohydrate for the eggs. You had 15 grams of carbohydrate for the toast, 1 toast, 2 slices, and 15 grams of carbohydrate for the raspberries. So everyone thinks fruit is really good and really important, and it is. It gives you lots of fiber and vitamins and minerals. But remember that it had 15 grams of raspberries. So if you were to say, what's going to fill me up? A bowl of raspberries or a slice of toast? It's going to be a slice of toast. So don't think that toast is all bad. And that's just something I wanted to bring up because it has the same number of carbohydrates as raspberries.
Yeah. Thank you. And you're very right. That comes to exchanges and what you would it's a buy-off. And I agree with you. This is that's the point about carb counting and exchanges. You have a lot of options that give you the same, but then you look at the nutritional value and then the impact on blood glucose for you to make those choices. That's lovely.
Sorry, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, of course you can.
Oh, okay.
Dados.
I just wanted to ask that I was listening to somebody and they were saying, don't cut on your carbs. And of course, we all love carbs, rice and, chapatis and everything. But what they said was that eat your proteins first, then have proteins and fats. And then later, after that, then have your carbs. So I just wanted to ask, is that correct? Do you, doctor, agree with that? That eat your proteins and fats and then leave the carbs to the end and then have a 10 minutes walk and then you'll be fine. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mentioned something about individualization of meals and carb first, carb last. I think what your doctor or your dietitian is trying to control for you is if you ate protein and other non-carb foods first, probably by the time you reach the carbs, you'll have a few of them to take because by then probably you'll have been satisfied. That's one. It's always a good practice to eat and make some movements or wherever you can. It's good for your intestines to digest to do the digestive process very well. Intestinal motility, they call it. But the only thing I would say, the order doesn't usually matter. It's the discipline. But if the discipline is difficult to attain, then you try to play around with the order to influence the actions of a patient. I've seen some people being told, first take a glass of water, then have food because they want to dump that urge of that comes with hunger and uncontrollable choices of how much you serve. To control for that is some of people have been told, I've seen, take some water and then eat after. So for me, it doesn't matter the order, but like I said, discipline may influence the order for you to take action. And it's okay to take a walk after eating. It's healthy. It allows the digestion process to really work well. Otherwise, some of them would even doze immediately after food because of that slow analysis process.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Dr. Seguya, thank you very much
You're welcome.
coming on and talk to us about the diabetes and nutrition to all of us. I know that you might have to go, but if you would like to stay, you can stay. We're gonna have now diabetes headlines, which Trevor is gonna read to us. But if you have to go, we totally understand. I know you must be busy, and it's 8 o'clock in Uganda. But you are very welcome to stay. Trevor, could you tell us about the diabetes headlines, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trevor, and I'll be presenting to you the news headlines today. So, for the first news headline, scientists just found a hidden off switch in a 60-year-old diabetes pill. So, metformin has been the world's most used diabetes medicine for over 6 decades, yet no one fully understood how it worked until now. Researchers have discovered that it does not just act on the liver and gut as long believed, but also flips a switch deep in the brain that helps to bring blood sugar down. This opens the door to smarter treatments built on the same trusted drug. For the second news headline, losing fat in the wrong places can eventually cause diabetes. It sounds backward, but new research shows that healthy fat tissue is a vital organ in its own right. When fat cells become damaged and disappear, the body loses its ability to store energy properly. That failure pushes fat into the liver and makes blood sugar harder to control, proving that diabetes can be driven by losing fat, not just gaining it. For the third and last news headline, India set to host International Type 1 Diabetes in Jodhpur. Starting 30th July, endocrinologists, researchers, policymakers, and patient advocates from India, US, and Australia will gather in Jodhpur for the International Type 1 Diabetes Summit in 2026, run with Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes and the William J. Clinton Foundation. Discussions will cover early diagnosis, equitable insulin access, continuous glucose monitoring, and integrated care models, recommendation feeding into India's national health policy on type 1 diabetes in children. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Trevor. And thank you very much, everyone who participated in this week Chai Chat. We will have another Chai Chat in August. We'll send you the notice when it's going to be. But for this week, thank you very much, everyone who participated, and wish you good evening to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.